Hey everybody, this is Jonathan Ogden, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
This is Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, UCLA, fight, fight, fight.
You're listening to the What's Bruin Show, part of the What's Bruin Show Network, with your hosts, Jake Merrifield, Bill Shirley, Jamaal Artis, and Mike Regalado, bringing you anything and everything UCLA sports. And now, it's time for the What's Bruin Show.
Well, hello, and welcome to WB2, the game review. I'm your host, Jake Merrifield, and I'm joined by nobody, just me today on the postgame. And coming to you the morning after UCLA beats NC Central 59-7 at the Rose Bowl. It was a great day at the Rose Bowl. Over quick. Bruins scored more points in a quarter than they've ever scored before. And a game that we thought should be over quick and in which everyone should play was over quick, and everyone played. So that's good. We got what we needed. The non-con is over. Chip Kelly is 3-0 for the second consecutive year to open the season. Who would have thought? And now on paper, at least, the Bruins face the toughest conference schedule in their last year of the Pac-12 that they've ever had in the Pac-12, with 8 teams being ranked. So the next couple months are going to be super crazy, but super fun, hopefully. We'll see. But, of course, thank you for joining the What's Bruin Show on the What's Bruin Show Network. A bunch of great shows on one great feed. You have this show, the What's Bruin Show, or the What's Bruin Symposium. You also have West Coast Bias. There'll be a West Coast Bias coming to you. Jamaal is excited that the Dodgers won the division for the 10th time in 11 years, I think. So that's coming your way shortly. You have me and my daughter, Megan, on the bare minimum.
The bare minimum.
And you have Michael Hanna, and maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe Nathan Eberhardt doing the B team. And he should be back this week with a show that they do on Spaces and then republish on the feed. And that was fun. So make sure you pay attention to that. You can email us at whatsbruinshow@gmail.com. You can also get What's Bruin Show Network merch at My Locker. Look in the show notes for the link, but it's at mylocker.net/shops/what's-bruin. And you can get your What's Bruin Show West Coast Bias bare minimum merch in whatever style or color you want. I told them to take all the red colors off there. They haven't done it yet, but, what are you going to do? You can also call the hotline, 805-399-4WBS, Sacramento, Troy, and give us your thoughts on this game, the beating of NC Central, or your thoughts on the upcoming game against Utah, the big road opener of the Pac-12 season. Maybe a month ago we were like, yeah, the Bruins have no chance in that game. But maybe now you're like, I don't know. Cam Rising ain't played yet. Who the hell knows? Maybe they can't go on the road and get a win, beating Utah for the second year in a row. But call the hotline and give us your thoughts.
So you asked for a drop for TJ Harden. I think you're looking for Harden My Heart by Quarter Flash.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. Although I can't decide whether I want to go with or just roll with the horns. Because we got the Man of Steel out there. Carson Steele makes a play. We're doing this. And then Harden has a 60-yard touchdown. I know, we'll see. I guess we'll have to see what gets flagged on YouTube and what doesn't, and then roll with that. But thank you very much. That's perfect, because I've been trying to get a drop for Harden for a while, and I think that will work just fine. And this certainly was a drop-worthy game for old Harden. Last but not least, you can also, speaking of YouTube, subscribe on the YouTube channel. We post every show now on YouTube with a slideshow. There's no video going on other than the slideshow. But if you could subscribe to that, that would absolutely help us out. And whatever you happen to listen to us on, please give us a rating or review. That will help get the word out about the What's Bruin Show and the What's Bruin Show Network. And we thank you for your support.
Fight, fight, fight!
Now, on to this game. This is a game that, coming in, as I said on the show with Mike on Tuesday, this is a game where everybody should play. This is a game that wasn't really going to be a game because the opponent was so outmatched, right? NC Central being a FCS team, an HBCU, they weren't going to come out onto the field with the Bruins and give the Bruins a game. They have guys that are good players in their division, in their league. They have they're a really good team for their status. And, as we heard the week go on, it was like, oh, you got to respect them. They beat Jacksonville State last week in Dion's last game and all that stuff. But the bottom line is this wasn't going to be a competitive game unless the Bruins didn't just play below their level, but played so below their level, like, a colossally historically bad performance by the Bruins for them to allow the Screaming Eagles to be in this game. And guess what? I was a little bit late to the game because my partner I rolled the games with had some morning stuff with his kids, and he didn't get to my house till a little bit late, and then we didn't get on the road till a little bit late, and we didn't get to the Rose Bowl till a little bit late, and we're walking in the stadium, and we get in there after, 90 seconds, not even 90 seconds of game time has elapsed. And what happens? Oh, we missed 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's what kind of game this was. And you look back at last year in the Bruins' first match up against an FCS team against the HBCU Alabama State Hornets, and it was a similar story, only this time, in 2023, it was just like last year, only worse, right? Against the Alabama State Hornets last year, the score was 31-7 at halftime, and the Bruins went touchdown, punt, touchdown, field goal, I want to say, to open up the game. That's when DTR was playing, and then by the end of the half, Garbers was in there playing. And this one against NCCU was even more of that. See what I did there? The Bruins score more points than I've ever scored before in a quarter, 35, and the game just opens up colossally well for them, right? All the way on one play on the first play of the game, Cam Brown from Dante Moore, and then the Eagles get the ball. Latu gets an interception that he takes back almost to the house, gets tackled on the one. I liked hearing Chip Kelly give him a hard time about that after the game. That was pretty funny. And then, from then on, it was a ridiculous first quarter. Just to recap those scores in the first quarter before anybody really even got comfortable in the stadium, right? Cam Brown, as I said before, 67-yard touchdown pass from Dante Moore, takes it right down the field. Then they get the ball back after Latu's interception, and Carson Steele, the man of steel, punches in from the one. Then they get the ball back after forcing a punt, I believe, and Michael Sturdivant gets in the action, 30-yard touchdown pass from Dante Moore once again. Do you want more? We did, but then he came out of the game because then with about 2/3 of the way through the first quarter, Colin Schlee, I'm working on a drop for Schlee. I can't find it right now, but hopefully he'll be there for next week. You're probably getting sick of the drops anyway, so whatever. But the Schleester takes it 57 yards, touchdown run, and just shows what a great change of pace he is. It's going to be really fun to see how all these things work for the Bruins once they're taking on conference opponents. And gee whiz, do you think Utah has some things to think about when dealing with Dante Moore or Colin Schlee? They absolutely do. But anyway, Schlee takes it 57 yards to the house with about 5 minutes left in the first quarter. And then he punches it in once again when he comes out there for a second drive. The man of steel takes it all the way down the sideline for, 42 yards? And then Schlee ends up punching it in from the one. I mean, it was so ridiculous that, normally when I'm watching the game, especially when I'm actually at the game, I'm keeping like a running tab of the different drives and just things that jump out to me as we go through the game so that when I talk about it, I can come back to it later. And in this game, I basically have no notes because there's no like, oh, this is what they did against NC Central on this particular drive, because it was just like every play the Bruins were overpowering them, right? So there's not really anything to say like strategically about any particular drive or any particular play other than, wow. But at one point in this game, the Bruins had 13 plays, right? And of those 13 plays, they had 5 first downs and 5 touchdowns. And I think one of the other plays went for like 9 yards. And then they had 1 incompletion or maybe 2 incompletions or something. But 13 plays, 5 first downs, 5 touchdowns on those 13 plays. I mean, that's just bonkers ridiculous. Okay, but that's how the game started, and that's how overmatched the Eagles were. So it was a fun event for the Bruins. They got to do the Black Excellence Day out at the Rose Bowl. A lot of different presentations regarding that. And so that was cool to see at the Rose Bowl. It's great to have an HBCU out at the Rose Bowl. They brought the band. The band had a great performance. That was very cool. And it's also great that that school got to make, some money for their athletic department coming out to the Rose Bowl, and their fans got to come out to California, have a good time. And we love to see that North Carolina flavor out here. I was very happy to see that. This year was very Carolina flavored in the non-con with Coastal and then NC Central out here, and rise up North Carolina. But, we hope you enjoyed your trip to LA. But this one was, over pretty much before it started. So there's not too much to say about this particular game.
UCLA, UCLA, fight.
Statistically, the Bruins put up some pretty freaking gaudy numbers here. 404 yards rushing for the day, 10.4 yards per rush, which is just, bonkers ridiculous. 12.4 yards per pass. That's also just sick. Total offensive yards, 614. That's also crazy time. And they had at the first half, after the first quarter, they're averaging 20 yards a play or some nonsense. But they rolled up a good chunk of that at the beginning and then just kind of coasted to the end. NCCU really, the defense held them down completely, with the exception of that one drive late when the dudes that, were getting their first opportunity to play for the Bruins and probably aren't going to get an opportunity except for in mop-up time way down the line, they're in the game. And even then it was kind of a struggle for the Eagles, but, whatever. They ended up average yards per rush, 2.8. Average yards for their pass attempts was under 5 at 4.6. And they only ended up with, less than 250 yards. So all these things are going to add to what has been a pretty impressive start statistically for the UCLA defense, and the offense certainly put up some gaudy numbers to pad their stats too. So it's all, the non-con numbers are going to look really good for this team. The jury still has to be out though, because you really can make the argument that they ain't played nobody. We'll see. That we ain't played nobody is going to change very quickly in the next couple of weeks, because now 4 out of the next 5 opponents are ranked teams. So we'll know if the Bruins are real certainly next weekend when they head up to Salt Lake City. That's going to be by far the toughest test of the season so far. And even if they lose that game, if they look good losing, they still don't lose faith. But after they get through the next fourth of the season, these next 3 games, that's when you're really going to be able to see, well, is this a team we get excited for, or is this one where it's like they're pretty good, but unfortunately the rest of the Pac-12 is just a little bit better. So that's what we're kind of looking for going forward. I don't know. I'm pretty pumped. Actually, on that note, let's do one more call.
This is Nancy. All I can say is, wow. How many times have you ever seen a team put in 5 quarterbacks? How many times have you ever seen UCLA score 35 in the first quarter? Unbelievable. So excited, but the proof of the pudding, I guess, will be next week. So looking forward to that. And so my question to you guys is what surprised you the most about today? Thanks, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Nancy, and thanks for calling. Talking about what surprised me in this game, not much, because I thought it was going to go out like this, but I didn't think it was going to go like this, right? I mean, what surprised me was just how crazy statistically it was for the Bruins, even more so than last year. And this, theoretically, we talk about how they're all overmatched when we talk about going against FCS teams, but this is a better team than they played last year. So maybe that bodes well for how the Bruins are this year. But one more gaudy stat for you, which just kind of blew my mind. How long did the Bruins have the ball in the first quarter? A quarter in which they scored 35 points, a quarter in which they scored more points than they've ever have before. How much possession time did they have in the first quarter? If you guessed 4 minutes and 16 seconds, then you would be right. That's just crazy to think about. I know that one of the touchdowns was gifted to them by Latu's interception, put down on the one, but still, they had the ball for 4 minutes and 16 seconds, and they put up 35 points. This is like, me making a big deal last week. They had the ball for like 10, 11 minutes in the first half, and they had 370 yards and the points that they put up. So just absolutely ridiculous numbers. And we already talked about, how, the first 13 plays or whatever. So that certainly deserves a medley of Go Bruins, I think. Here's Wetzel.
Go Bruins.
Toge Vice.
Go Bruins!
Dante Moore.
Go Bruins.
The cheerleaders. And Michael Castillo, Sucker Ranch Troy.
Go Bruins.
And Penguin can chime in too.
I'm happy that UCLA won.
I guess that's Castillo.
I'm happy that UCLA won.
Yeah, she's happy too. But we said it was an everybody plays game, and it certainly was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 guys rushed the ball for the Bruins today. Nancy already said 5 quarterbacks played. Everybody got a pass in except for Chase. But Moore, Garbers, Martin, Schlee, and Chase Griffin all played, which was kind of crazy. Speaking of offense and the quarterbacks getting in, the order, right, is kind of telling too. You know, Dante Moore, of course, is your starter. Do you want more? Yes, we want more, and so does Chip Kelly. But also, Schlee was the second one out, and we said this last week. I mean, it just seems like Dante Moore with the changeup / backup of Colin Schlee, that seems to be what it's going to be going forward. You know, Chip Kelly's not going to tell us that, but it seems like that's what the order is. And it is. It's kind of sad. You know, it's sad for Garbers, and it's good for Bruin fans. We're all happy to see how good they're playing, right? But when you think about Ethan Garbers, it's kind of like the unfortunate circumstance of he waited around for DTR and for his shot, and then he gets his shot, but it just so happens that 2 other quarterbacks, one high school recruit and one transfer, come in and beat him out for the job right when he's going to get his shot, and that's a shame, but it is what it is. And so Garbers is the third one out, and then the fourth one out was Chase Griffin, and you kind of feel like that was kind of a nod to everything that Chase has meant to the program, because I think if you put a head-to-head competition up, there's no world in which Chase beats Martin, Justin Martin out. But, it's kind of irrelevant because you're talking about the 4th and 5th string quarterbacks for the Bruins right now. So these guys are, some of these guys are going to go. It's like, when are they going to go is the question. But for right now, I mean, geez, the Bruins, we heard some of that bubbling up in the offseason about how great the Bruin quarterback room was. And it seems like all these guys are support each other, and that's great. But, I mean, they're not all going to stay. They're going to keep 5 quarterbacks on the roster that, 4 of which could all theoretically be starters for them. I mean, just look at the college football landscape. I mean, pretty much everybody's got a transfer quarterback playing for them. Look at the Pac-12, right? Everybody is a transfer quarterback except for the Bruins with Dante Moore, and he was it was quite a coup for them to get him, stealing him away from Oregon. Let's hope the Bruins can hold on to Dante for his 3 years. Everything goes well, but if the Bruins have a starter for 3 years, that means they're going to figure out who's going to be the backup behind Dante, because now that time is kind of allocated, all things being equal. You think about the Mora years with Brett Hundley and how they never really had a real true backup quarterback. I mean, Jerry came in and won that Texas game, but nobody would think of him as, a legit backup quarterback. You think about the Rosen years, and when he started getting hurt and we're going to falafel and all that. And, so this is kind of a rare situation. The Bruins have an absolutely stacked quarterback room, but it's probably just for the season. But getting back to how many guys played, 5 quarterbacks played, 11 guys rushed the ball. Fewer guys caught balls today. They didn't pass as much. And there were only 10 completions because obviously the Bruins aren't trying to pile on. But Cam Brown got in there and had his huge play, made another catch. Sturdivant got his requisite couple catches and a touchdown. And then a few other dudes caught passes early. And then, really the Bruins were just running the ball, and they were just successful doing whatever they were doing, but they didn't pass the ball a whole lot, which is fine. On the defensive side of the ball, though, I counted 34 different dudes got into the stat book for the Bruins on defense. So think about that. They played at least 34 guys on defense. So truly the definition of an everybody plays game. And by the end of the game, I mean, I'm looking around trying to figure out, there's guys out there that I never heard of, and I pay pretty close attention to who's on the team. So that was pretty crazy. But overall, a nice total team win for the Bruins, and now we know what it feels like if the Bruins were in the SEC and we were gonna go play the Iron Bowl or something. Now we know what that week before the Iron Bowl is like, because this is what the SEC does every single darn year in November, which is just shameful. But for the Bruins in September, it was just a nice day out at the Rose Bowl. So I hope you enjoyed it.
UCLA is a team now we're going to have to start talking about.
I like UCLA to win the game.
I was actively rooting for UCLA today, and it makes me feel dirty.
Oh, wait. Stop the press for a minute. I'm in the middle of doing the show, but Bill's calling, so let's see if he wants to be on the postgame for 2 weeks in a row. What's up?
Hey, Jake. Okay, good. Hey, what do you think of the game?
I'm trying to do a podcast right now about it. You want to be on the podcast?
Oh, dear God. No, I didn't want to be. I just wanted to. I was trying to get your thing about it.
All right, that's all we're going to get from Bill today. We did have a conversation about the game, but you'll hear his thoughts on Tuesday because he will be on the show. But no Bill on the postgame show today.
What a shame.
Well, I'm sorry, all right.
All right, let's quickly get into the ballers for the game. Obviously, first and foremost, top of mind is going to be your Bruin starting quarterback, Dante Moore. How do you like it? How do you like it? He's a baller.
Just a baller, man.
He ends up on the day, just a nice, easy bit of action for him. What did he end up having? Just an easy, 8 for 12 for 182, 67-yard long pass with 2 TDs. That'll do it. Certainly we'll get it done. Going on from there, we had Cam Brown, Michael Sturdivant getting passing touchdowns. They're ballers too.
He's just a baller, man.
Very nice to see those guys get touchdowns, especially Cam Brown getting one of his first big play of the season, if I remember right. Although did he have a play in that first game? I don't remember. Also, Carson Steele and Harden. TJ Harden get out there, and both of them have nice days in limited action. Carson ends up 5 rushes, 83 yards. That's a 16.6-yard average with a touchdown. TJ ends up 5 for 68 with that long touchdown of 62 runs. That was a 13.2-yard average, and they both look just terrific and good. There's been a little, kind of subplot going on with the Bruin offense. I've been hearing with a lot of different people talking about the Bruins, and it's like, well, do we like Steele? Do we like Harden? And look, I'm very much behind Crocky J and everything that Carson Steele has to offer, just because I was so excited about him transferring, and he is my magic man.
The magic man.
But dude, I love TJ Harden as much as the next guy. And to me, it doesn't really matter who is the 1A and 1B, because they are 1A and 1B. And I think that could change from game to game. Who knows? But I don't think you're really, whatever you're losing by playing one over the other, you're gaining something by playing one over the other. And I think they're right in there as a great 1-2 punch for the Bruins, whoever happens to be 1 or 2. And that's just me. During the Shaq Kobe era, I hated is it Shaq or is it Kobe? I just like them both. I wanted to see him be happy. And it's all you guys that are trying to be divisive and be like, oh, I like this guy more than that guy. That's what causes that strife. So no, they're both good. Let's enjoy them both while we have them, right? But neither of them was a leading rusher in this game. That goes to Anthony Adkins. Big day for him. Big, rumbling, stumbling, bumbling dude out there running over fools, and he played like a straight baller today. So he's a baller.
Straight baller.
And we appreciate him. Other dudes that had some nice offensive highlights that we don't want to forget. Of course, Colin Schley comes out there as the backup quarterback and just goes nuts.
Just a baller, man.
Colson Yankoff with some very heavy running.
Straight baller.
And on defense, it was just an overpowering performance, and there's not really, really any one dude that sticks out over any other than, the first play of the game, or the first couple plays of the game that the Eagles had on offense were taken from them by Leatu Latu, the baller of all ballers. So great job with that interception. You probably should have scored, but you are a superstar, straight baller man.
Straight baller.
He's just a baller, man.
Just a baller, man.
And so is the whole UCLA defense on this particular day. Also, the special teams. I haven't mentioned them yet, but once again, they're 1 for 1 on field goals, a lot of touchbacks, and really no gaffes. The very clean first 3 games for the UCLA special teams. No punts blocked, right? No field goals missed, and just a lot of competent play, even if there hasn't been anything super spectacular. This team has plenty of people making spectacular plays on offense and defense. So special teams doesn't have to be spectacular. It'd be great if they did have a couple spectacular plays, but I'd rather them be just pretty good and not really sticking out for any particular reason, good or bad, because the offensive defense is doing their part. So as of right now, the special teams is playing just fine, and we appreciate you guys.
Just a baller, man.
Didn't you say in your resume that you did 4 years at UCLA?
Yes. Technically, if you consider Bel Air an extension of the campus, which everybody does.
So, looking ahead, the Bruin non-con is over. It was, I think, a very successful non-con season. 3-0 against three, underwhelming opponents, but the Bruins played about as well as we could expect, considering that they had a quarterback situation to resolve. We can consider that resolved. We know who it is. And considering that there was a lot of transition going on, a new defensive coach, some tinkering on the scheme, new personnel, right? A lot of transfers, guys getting worked in here. And I think the Bruins have looked, as good as we would want them to look, and they've looked better every game, right? Even though they're playing an overmatched opponent today, they looked very, very, very sharp. And let's hope that they take that honed edge all the way to Salt Lake City with them next week. But the conference season is starting now, and it is crazy. Just looking at the schedule, the Pac-12 schedule for next week, there's 1, 2, 3 matchups of top 25 teams, right? UCLA is going to Utah. That's 22 versus 11. Colorado's going up to Autzen. That's going to be 19. Colorado dropped one spot, going up against number 10, Oregon, who's rose up 3 this week. As I'm looking at the new updated AP poll, and thanks to the Slack channel for updating me on that. Appreciate you guys. Oregon State's going up to play the Cougs up on the Palouse, and Oregon State rose up 2-14 this week, so that's 14 versus 21 Washington State. That's going to be a pretty crazy game as well. And then Stanford's playing Arizona. Neither of them are ranked. SC is playing Arizona State. SC's up to number 5. And then Cal is going up to Seattle to play Washington. And Washington's up to number 8. So crazy. Still, you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ranked Pac-12 teams. That's probably a couple of those will fall out after this week. I imagine Oregon's going to get beat by Colorado's going to get beat by Oregon, so Colorado may drop out. You never know. If the Bruins lose to Utah, they may drop out. You never know. And if the Cougs lose to Oregon State, they'll probably drop out of the top 25 as well. But the Pac-12 with the 8 ranked teams going into the main conference season, it's probably over as far as that goes. But it doesn't take away from how good this conference has looked so far. And just looking at the schedule for next week. Who has the opportunity to have the best win? I really do think it's UCLA if they can manage to beat Utah in Salt Lake at Rice Eccles. They're certainly not going to be favored to do it, but I think they have a better chance of beating Utah than now, seeing how Colorado has looked. Certainly it's awesome to get behind the Colorado sway and enjoy that, but I think they're going to get murdered by Oregon. You can't convince me otherwise. So I think the Bruins have a better chance of upsetting Utah than Colorado has of upsetting Oregon. And I think that if, Oregon State's on the road at Washington State, they're probably going to be favored in that game. So that won't be nearly as big of a win. Although it will be a big win for them. But this is one of those opportunity games for the Bruins, right? If they beat Utah at Rice Eccles, now all of a sudden they probably, Utah is going to drop probably 6 spots, 7, 8 spots, but the Bruins will be launched up into, if the the low teens, if not into the top 10 with that big of a win. Because right now everybody's like, well, they ain't playing nobody yet, but they look pretty good. But they beat Utah in Utah, and now, like I said, they're probably going to be, 12, 13, 14 at worst, maybe even 11, 12, depending on how the rest of the games go. Because there's just a bunch of great games across college football next week. So, we have something to look forward to. I would say, don't put all your eggs in one basket in this game. Like if the Bruins get curb stomped by Utah, then now, the air will be let out of the balloon and we can start complaining and go, oh my gosh, once again, what happened to this team? But if they go to Rice Eccles, acquit themselves well, who knows how it's going to go, but, they lose a competitive game, then you just got to say, well, they got to beat Washington State after that, and then they got to beat, then you really want that Oregon State game. But look at this next fourth of the season. The non-con completed with flying colors, 3-0. Now for the next 3 games, at Utah, hosting Washington State, at Oregon State. You have to get the Washington State game. Like, you gotta win at the Rose Bowl against a team that's probably pretty good, but you should be able to beat them, especially at home. Then, really, I think you just want to split at Utah and Oregon State. Obviously, it'd be great if they could get them both, but at this point, I think all of us would settle for getting one of them, and then all of a sudden, you're 5-1 going into the rest of your schedule, and I think with that being said, the only big tough game you have left is the SC game, and then you're going to have worthy opponents in Arizona and Cal, I think, and then you'll have the layups against ASU and Stanford. But if you can get through the first half of the schedule at 5-1 at worst, I think that really puts you in a very competitive spot to go into the back half of the schedule. Even if they lose the Utah and the Oregon State games, I think what we're looking for is them being not just competitive, but like very competitive. These need to be games where they're going down to the wire, maybe maybe circumstance gets them or whatever. I still wouldn't be out on this team if they end up losing to Utah and Oregon State. Obviously, I'm hoping they split them, but it's the way those games go that's going to determine how where my excitement level continues to be for this team, because and then think back to Brett Hundley's first year under Jim Mora, and they get that hot start out from under him, and they look real good. I think they beat Nebraska that year. I don't quite remember. It might have been, but remember that year we were all excited about them, and then they have that inexplicable game against Cal that they end up losing, and that was like Brett Hundley's like mulligan game. I'm trying to think of what Josh Rosen's mulligan game would have been, because we're all like expecting Dante Moore to at some point struggle and to have those freshman moments, and so far he absolutely has not. He's been unbelievably good, especially considering the fact that he's coming in as a true freshman, but there's probably going to be a few of those moments, and can the Bruins survive those moments without a loss? I don't know, but you have to take that in consideration too. And I'd say a good candidate for the freshmen to have some struggles, probably is going to be when they're on the road in super duper hostile environments in Salt Lake City and Corvallis. Looking back, I guess Rosen's moment was the loss to the Sun Devils. They end up losing the Sun Devils at home, I think, and it's terrible. They end up losing 38-23, and Rosen's got like 280 yards and a couple touchdowns, but an interception, and Berkovici comes in and just puts it on the Bruins. That was a terrible game. Now I'm remembering that. Yuck. But I think it will be okay if Moore has a couple of these freshman moments in one of these road games, and if the Bruins end up losing a game which they probably weren't favored in to begin with, and it's one that we kind of expected them to drop from the get-go, that's better than them losing some inexplicable game, like having a really horrible game against Arizona or something like the Bruins had last year, right? So just win those ones you're favored in, and then of the 3 really tough road games, the SC, the Oregon State, Utah, desperately, absolutely, you need to win one of them to have a good season, to have a really fun, great season. If you win 2 of them, I mean, now you're talking about you're contending for a conference title as long as you're not letting down somewhere else. So that's what we're looking at heading into the conference season. I look forward to what you guys have to say. Give us your thoughts. Call the What's Bruin hotline, 805-399-4WBS, Sagarina, Troy. Before Tuesday's show, it will be me, Mike, and Bill, and we'll probably get Jamaal in there a little bit for some Pac-12 talk. Incidentally, that Colorado game was crazy yesterday. That was a heck of a thing to watch. But it just absolutely convinced me that even though I am certainly, Colorado being my second favorite Pac-12 team this year, just because I was so ignited, my passion was ignited with those first couple wins. I just think they're going to get gobbled up in a lot of the Pac-12 schedule. So enjoy it while it lasts, Buffs, because I think it's gonna go away in these next couple weeks. You're about to be 3-2, but that's okay. Because everybody thought you were gonna. I mean, I thought you were gonna be super terrible, and you're way better than anybody thought. But whatever. This is the Buffcast. It's the Bruins. So go Bruins, and we will see you next time.
Good evening.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
That was the What's Bruin show.
Try us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's gotta be in or out, Mom. In or out. Well, I need the door closed.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Dude, Rob, we play some ball on the West Coast.
The final word is boob.